Hey everyone, Michael here from Richucation. Today we're going to talk about an interesting question. It's not necessarily critical to your learning process, but I think it's useful to have as context to know, and I think for me it's really motivating. It's the question of how long does it take to learn? And some of you who have read, say, Malcolm Gladwell's most popular source might have heard what's called the 10,000 hour rule. It was popularized by a guy by the name of Dr. Anders Ericsson. And he's really the foremost researcher in areas of talent or skills, etc. And the interesting thing is his research actually doesn't support the 10,000 hour rule. 10,000 hour rule is an average, okay? What it really is it depends on the field you're in. So if it's a new field, for example, when BMX was new, I think they did calculations that it took 5,000 hours to become world class. Whereas in physics, it took like 20,000 hours. It wasn't specifically 10,000 hours. Kind of Malcolm Gladwell simplified that when he wrote his book Outliers. Now, that's kind of good, it's kind of not good, all right? Where it's good is it gives you some sort of a benchmark. You can say, okay, I can shoot for 10,000 hours, which is approximately 5 years at 2,000 hours a year. Although that does assume that's hours of deliberate practice, not just doing it. So it might take you longer. That being said, that number is a little daunting, and I don't think that serves people very well. So I want to put it into some context. What does that number refer to? It refers to being world class in a complex skill set. All right? So for example, chess. Chess is an extremely complex game, so it's going to take you 10,000 hours to be world class. That means you can participate and play at a world level. Doesn't mean you're going to be the world champion, but at that level, right? Now, how many of us need to be world class? Not actually that many, right? In most of the things that we're doing in most of our life, if we're just good, better than average, we get, a big increase in result. If we're great, better than, quite a bit better than the good people, that sets us above our peers. We're probably the best in our city, possibly our province or state. That really puts us in a position where we have a lot of leverage, we can get a lot of value, we can build a reputation. It'll carry us really far just to have that. Now, to be outstanding in our field, the best in our country or whatever, I guess that would probably put us on the world class level. But the point is just that, yeah, there's a disproportionate gain for people at the very, very top. Right? Tony Robbins has this really interesting thing he says, it used to be, what do people want? They want a good life. But what's the problem? If you do a good job, what kind of life do you get? You get an average life. It used to be in the past, when the world wasn't so global and competitive, that you would get yourself a good life. But now that competition has given an erosion to this. And so now, if you want a good life, what do you got to be? You got to be great. And how much harder is it to be great than good? It's a lot harder, like 10 times harder sort of thing. It's this huge jump. I liken it to go from say, 70% to 80%. What is the difference when you're doing tests and participating in school? It's a big difference between 70 and 80, right? So you got to be 80%. But does that give you? But people who are willing to push themselves that hard, they don't want a good life. They want a great life. And do they get a great life? No, they get a good life. So you say, okay, well, what do you have to do? You have to go and push to the next level. What do you got to do to get that? It's you have to be excellent. Excellent is going from 80% to 90%. It's a huge jump again. You're like, oh my gosh, this is insane. It's insane. It's super intense. But that'll give you a great life. But people who are willing to push that hard, they don't want just a great life. They want an amazing, fantastic life. And what do you have to do that? You can't just be excellent. You have to be outstanding. To be outstanding, that means you stand out from the other people in your field. And what Tony will say is, people will say, Tony, I've already done this big push from good to great, from great to excellent. I don't have enough in me to push that last little bit. And he says, that's where you're wrong. See, the jump from excellent to outstanding is just a small jump. And it's interesting to look at this in the Olympics. What's the difference between the person who gets first and the person who gets fourth, say in a 100-meter dash? It's less than a second. It's I don't know how much it is, a few tenths of a second maybe. But what's the difference? What does the person who gets first get? They get a gold medal. What does the person who gets second get? They get a silver medal. What does the person who gets bronze get? They get nothing. So there is a disproportionate advantage, for sure, when you get to that level to pushing that extra little bit. That being said, business and wealth building is not sports. It's not you can't just have one winner. You can have lots of winners. We can all win at this game. We can all end up in a position where we are able to create the life of our dreams, design an outstanding lives for ourselves. So for the most part, you don't need to be world class. You can get by with being really good. Now, I really recommend that you find something that you get world class in, because it absolutely can pay off and will have big dividends for you. You're indispensable at that stage. But for a lot of people in most fields, they don't want to be. So the question then becomes, okay, how much energy do I have to put in to get to a degree of competency that's useful? And there's actually some research on this. It turns out the number is 20 hours in a simple skill. So not for a complex skill set, you're not going to learn to be a chess person, a chess master in 20 hours. But you can break down the skill. We talked about this in deliberate practice and deconstructing, right? And a micro skill takes about 20 hours. That's interesting because you can learn for 20 hours in a month pretty easily. You do that 12 months and you've mastered 12 micro skills to a really high degree. Because what you get is you get this graph where you get a lot of gain on your first number of hours. And so you have hours along here and then level of skill, like the returns for that skill here. And what you'll find is initially you get this really sharp incline and then it kind of levels off where you get a much lower difference. So generally speaking, beyond this 20-hour point, the difference in gains are minimal unless you go quite a ways out, where competition really shows up. That's where you get kind of into things like sports and chess, where you're competing at the world-class level. But again, that's generally not necessary. So I thought for me that was really inspiring, and I wanted to share it with you. Was this concept that break it down, just think to yourself, okay, how many micro skills have I got to learn? For example, in Richucation, we've got 6 macro areas. Each of those break down on average into probably like another 5, so you're up to 30. And then each of those break down into, again, probably like another 5, so you're up to about 150. So 150 micro skills. That's still quite a bit, which kind of goes to show how long it takes to learn, right? Typically speaking, the journey to become rich takes a person about 5 to 10 years. That's kind of you're starting from nothing. Now, if you're starting from a base, you can get there quicker. And certainly there's some ways to accelerate that by differentiating, which is that really big lesson on the deliberate practice and the number of hours, right? 5,000 hours in BMX versus the 20,000 in physics. But I hope that really helps you. I hope it helps to put it in a little bit of context and give you some inspiration that, hey, look, you can get a long ways in 10 months. In 2 years, you can be really far. That's like 500 hours worth of stuff. You're talking about 24 skills, which will go a long, long, long way in your life. And that's assuming that you only spend 20 hours a month. The reality is you might spend a lot more than that if you're really interested in the field. You're really wanting to dive in. Like I have been, I tend to get obsessed with things. And so hopefully you find it the same. Again, we're happy to help you in this journey. I really hope that you join us, you join our community, you participate, and both help others and also get help yourself. Thanks very much, and we'll see you on the next video.